Hey everybody, it's your good friend Doc here, and I wanted to tell you about my haul this week. Let me know in the comments what you guys picked up, what you're reading, what you're liking, what you're not liking, and we will start a conversation down there. Let me know if you picked up any new #1 books, any facsimiles. What is it that is tickling your fancy? Is it the Marvel and DC books, or is it more along the lines of the indie books? All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started on this pile. All right, so the first book is Conan the Barbarian, issue number 20 by Jim Zub with art by Doug Braithwaite. And it's got this awesome Roberto De La Torre cover. I wish Roberto De La Torre was still on the book because he practically is the second coming of John Buscema. But you know what? The more that I see this, then the better with the colors and everything, the more I like Doug Braithwaite and his artwork. My first introduction to Doug came during the 2 sequels to Earth X back in Marvel. So we're talking almost 25 years ago. But it just seems like fine wine, Doug gets better with age and better with time. So we left off Conan the last issue, and he was fighting what he thought was a black puma. But it turns out that it's practically a spirit animal that just can change and make itself into whatever it needs to be, because it takes many forms during the course of their initial battle. But what's really cool is he's not the villain. Instead, he says, "I sense the serpent within you." And Conan remembers that he was stabbed by that double-fanged sword back in issue 18, I believe. And it was during his adventures with Belit before she had passed. And he remembered that it didn't just burn the skin. It was almost like it burned his soul. And so this leopard, she character, this shape changer, says, "Meet me at this giant monument to my people. And we will see whether or not the serpent's fangs are completely within you and you're irredeemable, or if there's a chance that you can be saved." So during the course of this, we see all of this wonderful detailed artwork by Doug Braithwaite. We get to see the struggle within Conan. He's wondering if this person can be truly telling the truth. And he eventually reaches this monument. And he sees his frenemy again, who says, "We will start this, and we will see whether you are worthy or unworthy." And it's a really great story showing depth to the character of Conan. A lot of people see Conan and they just think of Schwarzenegger and they think of, method acting and just flat as a character, no depth to him. But the character that Robert E. Howard wrote and the character that Jim Zub is adapting as his own and molding into his own, that character has a lot of layers, such as an onion. And with every issue that you read of this title, you get to see a little bit more of that character. You get to understand him. You may not always appreciate what he's going through or his feelings on certain issues, but you can understand him and his motivations more and more with each issue. So, I'm not going to tell you whether he triumphs or not, but there will be a Conan number 21 next month, so that should tell you everything that you need to know. Although, to be honest, this title, just like every Conan title, does not tell the story of Conan chronologically. It jumps around for different points so that the character and his apparently never-ending trek across this world is never satiated, and you do get to see King Conan occasionally, but if you went in order, then eventually the series would end. But this way you can always go back and tell almost untold tales of Conan and things like that to keep the series strong and fresh. All right, guys, next up we have, if the book will come to me, we have Flash Gordon issue number 8. And that book is written by Jeremy Adams with guest art by Tom Derenick And we see the continuation of Flash's attempts to find his love, Dale. And she has been captured after the trials and tribulations that Flash has been going through in this series, and she is set to marry another. And Flash is determined, I'm going to save her, because if she's alive, the only reason that she isn't with me is because she fears that I've perished. And this title, just like Green Lantern, has expanded with each issue. It seems to tell a bigger tale. And I just got through watching a Thinking Critical video where Wes actually talked to Jeremy Adams for about an hour and a half. And you can tell that this is a guy that loves the characters, respects the characters, wants what's good for them, but also tells one hell of an interesting story. So you get to see Flash, and he's excited by what he's found, and it's friends. And in this, he finds a way in to possibly save Dale. Meanwhile, Zarkov, the robot that we saw destroyed or thought destroyed in the last issue, seems to come to his senses. He was trying to kill Flash the last that we saw him because he had attempted to lash on to a computer system, and that computer system was a living virus that took him over, and he tried to kill Flash. But here we see that he is again straightened out and come to his senses, so he determines that he's got to find Flash and help him out. So he busts into a passing spaceship and throws the two bug-eyed looking guys that are on the spaceship out in search of his friend. So throughout all this, you learn that just like most great characters have that one love that they'll cross oceans and mountains to get to, Dale is that character for Flash. And he's determined, by hook or by crook, that he will get to his love and he will save her. And there's a special ending that you get with this issue, and I'm not going to spoil that here, but it kind of sets up the next issue, and it sets it up in a weird way. It takes the character of Dale in a strange direction. But if you haven't been reading Flash Gordon or any of the books by Jeremy Adams, Aquaman, Green Lantern Corps, any of those books, you should definitely check out Flash Gordon, because he has taken this character and brought him further into life. Because he made the comment when talking on the other video that he doesn't see the need to reboot these characters. Instead, you can take what has come before, and even if it's not the greatest plot thread, you can take that and build something with it. Or you can choose to discard it and just focus on the strengths of the character and bring the character back to their heights and what they were at the time that everybody was reading the title. So, you've got some really great pulp and action adventure in Flash Gordon, issue number 8. Alright, next up is Flash, but not Flash Gordon. It is Absolute Flash, issue 2. And this is by Jeff Lemire, with artwork by Nick Robles. And this continues the story of Wally West and Barry Allen, and it gives a different look to the powers that Wally West has apparently taken. It's almost like he can shift within time rather than being focused on the present, the past, or the future. He can be wherever he needs to be in order to further this story, since it's only on issue 2, but also so that he can better understand his powers. And he sees the past, he sees the future, and he sees everywhere in between. Meanwhile, it seems as though Barry might have survived issue 1, Although this could be in the past, we're not sure. It looks like it's present day. We're just going to have to read issue 3 to find out. But I really think Jeff Lemire has got this book on lock, because Lemire always tells a story just like Sweet Tooth that it seems to be melancholy. And there's always some sort of loss. There's always some sort of depressive state. One of the characters is always sad sack, or something is going on with this character that adds interesting levels to that character. And in this issue, then Barry Allen is the Flash, it looks like, in this costume. But you have Wally West, who has also gained similar powers. So I don't know if this is going to lead into the Speed Force. I don't know if it's going to lead into Barry Allen and Wally West being Kid Flash. It's too early to tell exactly where this is going. But in the end, it looks like you have Captain Cold here, and you have some of the other rogues from the Rogues Gallery that are out to destroy Wally West before he can really get a grasp on his powers. And this character here is called Glider, and she says, I'll get him. I'll get the kid, because I haven't met anybody yet that can outrun me. And somehow, using his power, he does just that. And he outruns her and manages to shift. And like I said, he sees different times in his timeline. He sees the past. He sees his mother, who is since deceased. So you've got this complex character who thought that he killed who should have been main character in the first issue. You've got traumatic experiences from his father, who mistreated him, and he was an army brat that got drugged around the country by his father. So you've got a really interesting mix, unlike some of the other Absolute titles, to really get in there and figure out not just what this guy's power set is, but who he is as a character. So I think Absolute Wonder Woman and now Absolute Flash, to me, are the best two books in the Absolute universe. And this one I didn't look closely enough at. This is G.I. Joe Silent Missions issue 1 featuring Spirit. So I'll talk about that in initial assessment. Apparently these Silent Mission books are based off of the silent issue that Larry Hama and company did at Marvel back in the early 1980s. And the story goes that they only had 2 weeks to crank out this book for whatever reason. I don't know if the regular artist got sick, disappeared, died, fell off the face of the earth. I don't know what happened. But Larry Hama agreed to write it and do the breakdown pencils, and then Steve Lealola did finished pencils and inks on the book, but they didn't have time for a letterer. They didn't have time to letter the book. So it turned into the infamous Silent issue, number 21. And every G.I. Joe series since then that they rebooted to a number 1 has always, at 21, attempted to recreate that Silent issue. So like I said, this is part of a series of one-shots that try to do the same thing. So like I said, we will talk about that later in initial assessment. All right, then we have Star Wars Legacy of Vader issue 3. We have Kylo Ren still trying to figure out who he is in relation to his grandfather, Darth Vader. This is by Charles Soule with art by Luke Ross. And he's been captured by, I believe it's Gardula the Hutt. And in this, he's been tied up, and he's locked into these chains that every time they tell him to obey, and he does not obey, then they hit him with electricity. And he says, you don't know who I am, you don't know what my power set is, and you cannot keep me here. And so eventually, during this torture, he is put to sleep by a shot. And in this sleep, he learns more about who Darth Vader is, what Darth Vader's motivations are. And in this really poignant moment, it says, everything that I created, everything that I made magnificent, I did it alone. I didn't do it with the Emperor. I didn't do it because of my generals. I didn't do it because of the Empire. I did it all on my own. And that's the way that you have to walk. You have to become your own man, and you have to be a self-made man of evil, of the Sith. So he wakes back up, and he says, hey, go ahead and say that word one more time. So it says obey, and he manages to overpower that system and short-circuit it. So I never liked Kylo Ren, probably because Adam Driver, in my opinion, is one of the strangest looking human beings I've ever seen in my life. But that's neither here nor there. But I couldn't get into the story of how Luke Skywalker's nephew tries to follow in the path of Luke's father, why he turns evil. And this book here is giving you backstory to build Kylo Ren up into an interesting character. At least it has potential to do so. So I'm really enjoying this. I got a friend of mine, Daniel, that works with me, and he knew about this series before I did. And he's told me, he said, the only issue I really want to collect is the one where Kylo Ren kills Watto. And Watto is the character that held his grandfather. He was the Tidarian that held his grandfather captive in the prequel trilogy. And so I don't know what Daniel's deal was with Watto, but apparently he wanted to see him get taken out. And at some point, you get to see Darth Vader come back. I thought it was Kylo Ren, but it was actually Vader. Vader come back and enact revenge on Watto. So I'm sticking with this. I really think that it's a cool Star Wars story. And if it can redeem Kylo Ren, who they built up to be the next Darth Vader, and he just didn't live up to that potential, just like in the book. If Charles Soule and company can take this character and actually make something of him, that he has his own legacy, as well as understanding his legacy with his grandfather, this book is going to turn out to be, in my opinion, one of the best Star Wars books that's ever come down the pike. All right, next up, we have The Walking Dead Deluxe, issue 111. We are in the issue right before, if I remember properly, All Out War. So Rick is gathering his forces. Jesus is helping him with the people from the hilltop. Andrea is here. We've got all of our main characters, all of our main players are here. And we are building up for All Out War, which was really, to me, the pinnacle of the series. We've talked about it before, but Kirkman was going to finish the series in the mid-'80s, and then he had the epiphany to have Negan come in with issue 100, and it really was the shot in the arm that series needed, because it had slowed down to a snail's pace before that. And this was the shot that was needed, and then that shot kind of ran all the way through maybe the 130s, and then it kind of coasted for the next 60 issues all the way to the end. But it's crazy to me to think that we are that close to the end of the series. It's only 80 issues, which means if they're doing it twice a month, every single month, then we only have a little less than 4 years to go to have the complete series in color, and only for $1 more than the original issues were. That was another $2.99 book along with Spawn for its entire run, no matter how big the issues were. And it's nice to see that they've gone back, and for those that just could not stand the black and white aesthetic of the book, now you have no reason not to read it, because it's in glorious color. All right. And the last two books that I picked up were facsimile books, and we'll talk about those in the Greatest Hits series. We have Fantastic Four issue 4, which is the coming of the Submariner. So you have Namor the Submariner, and he's trying to run off with Sue Storm, and Reed Richards is not going to have that. So you have the beginning of the love triangle between Reed Richards and Sue Storm and Namor. And what's really interesting about this is that Namor would have gone unnoticed, except Johnny Storm came and used his flames to clean him up, burn the beard off of him. He was pretty much a bum. He had lost Atlantis. He had lost his kingdom. And he was just drinking himself to death slowly. So you get this wonderful Jack Kirby artwork, and not that artwork. That is How to Take Charge of a Highly Paid Job in Air Conditioning and Refrigeration. That's what I love about these old facsimile books, is they have the same ads that they used to run, I guess, 60 years ago now at this point. But you get to see Jack Kirby coming into his own with these characters and making them his own. It's crazy to think that he would go ahead and, from this issue, do 99 more issues in a row. Really, once Joe Sinnott came on as inker, making the Hulk look iconic. I mean, look, the Thing, not the Hulk. But making the Thing look iconic, and as you go along, you get Galactus, you get the Silver Surfer, you get all of these micro-universes. This was the book that built the Marvel Universe, and that's why it's one of the greatest hits. But we will talk about that later and in more depth in Greatest Hits. And the second and final greatest hit that I got this week was Batman 615. It was part of the original Hush title that ran through Batman 608 through 619. I've got some of the original issues, so I'm collecting the facsimiles of the issues that I can't find. And that way I'll have the complete series. You get to see this wonderful Jim Lee artwork that he was just Jim Lee in his prime. And Jim Lee in his prime was right up there with Todd McFarlane, because I've said it before and I'll say it again, that you have Jim Lee, who as a younger man was going to go to med school and was going to become a doctor. And instead, he took his talents at anatomy and physiology and knowing how the body reacts, and instead he created extremely lifelike character work on these books. So that was the haul for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed checking this out. We will do at least one of the Greatest Hits videos here tomorrow. But in the meantime, you guys enjoy your books. I hope that you had a really awesome Wednesday and that you got to get all the books that you wanted from the shop. And we will see you guys in the next video. Take care, and we'll see you then.